of yours today.
Okay. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Bill and Eamon's Bogus Hangout. And have our guests introduce themselves. Terry.
Terry Van Horn, what Master T in the past. I don't know what I do now. Kind of take up space and come here once in a while.
Doc.
Doc Sheldon of Intrinsic Value SEO, and I specialize in taking up space.
And I'm Bill Slosky, author at SEO by the Scene, director of Taking Up Space at Go Fish Digital. So Terry, you said you have a couple of topics.
Yeah, three actually.
Okay.
In regards to the discussion, I was wrong last week on none of those places charge the restaurants anything.
Okay.
I think they're taking it from the drivers, which to me is, I don't know where they get their staff, but
So
the other thing is,
they charge
here's
a
the other
fee
thing.
and they charge a delivery fee.
I'm not sure, but I ordered Kentucky Fried Chicken to kind of try it out, and I had a real hanker, so I ordered a bucket and a few other things. The delivery charge, I think, was $10, and it's coming like maybe 10 minutes away. Like the pizza delivery place and almost right near there.
Yeah.
Charges $2.
Two.
Yeah. So I see where they're making and when I went to almost every one of those sites doing that because I have in my mind that I read somewhere on one of these sites, right, that they were taking fees from the restaurants. And I thought to myself, no way can a restaurant support that kind of thing? And
right, that wouldn't work as business model, would it?
No, not at all. No, not at all. So I don't know where I got that from. It was probably from like the early days when there weren't a lot of people and there was only one game in town. I think that was the one that Google bought, right? Grubhub.
I'm not sure. Grubhub was just purchased by Uber, weren't they?
Oh, okay. Oh, I know what I'm thinking of. The restaurant rating thing was what Google bought.
Zagat.
I forget the name of that.
Zagat.
That's the name of it.
I have seen people commenting that some restaurants that had delivery were not happy about the fact that they might charge $4 to deliver your pizza, or even not charge for it. And then Uber comes along and is charging $10, and they were taking delivery fees or delivering service away from the business. And some businesses were unhappy about that.
I haven't seen delivery charges that high, $10.
Now, I haven't seen anybody charging.
There could be a COVID thing on it right now too. Like I've heard of like a surcharge. Like when oil went way up, they had to put a surcharge on a number of products.
Like surge pricing at Uber.
Yeah, COVID stuff. It costs them more money now, right? Because they have to buy gloves, a mask, hand sanitizer, all that stuff, right?
You know, it's interesting. Down here, the food places that do offer delivery use almost exclusively small motorcycles, a little 125cc, 100cc with a box mounted on the back, and some kid is getting paid God knows what miserable wage to run around and deliver these things. And there are a lot of places that got closed down with the lockdown that didn't have delivery service. These guys have had to actually go out and buy or rent 3 or 4 motorcycles to be able to offer delivery to open up at all. And I haven't seen any of the food delivery places charging anything whatsoever for delivery. Whatever's on their menu, that's what they're charging.
Yeah, my brother, when he was in Asia, he said he's got a small electric. It's got pedals on it and everything. It's not classified as a motorcycle, but Christ, he can get around on that thing pretty good, and that's what they use for delivery there in Asia. No gas too, eh? So electricity's probably cheaper there than gas.
Yeah, there's a type of electric bicycle that they refer to as pedal assist.
Right.
So
like a moped, but electric, yeah.
It doesn't completely power the bike, but it adds to your pedaling.
Yeah, well, I think you have to take a pedal to get the thing started. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Or if the motor breaks down, you can pedal it, but it's not very easy.
Well, I'm glad you followed up on that. Okay, so you have a couple other
Well, I
stories.
always do. If you guys tell me I'm wrong, I'm going to go and see if I was wrong or not, just to satisfy my own curiosity, I didn't bother looking up on the testing because I really don't care.
Okay, so what were the other two topics?
Well, I saw on Twitter you got to really watch when I look at your Twitter feed because you throw out some old articles, but they're always good ones. And the one on reciprocal links, when I saw it was written in 2011, I thought to myself, Christ, this could have been written yesterday because nothing has really changed from what you said there.
Well,
However,
I updated some parts of it.
Yeah. However, what I did, I think I tweeted back a reply and said, you have to also look at professional in the categories of directories, local directories that are geo-specific, like Frog and all the ones you see in a local SEO companies, the 20 you got to go to. Those are all like categories and cities. So it hits two things, in my opinion. It hits one part of a knowledge domain category, helps in assisting that verification. Geolocation, especially if the directory, if you look up the actual location of the directory. So, for instance, when I was doing local, I specifically wanted directories that were in Toronto.
Right.
Yeah, that was what I would add to your reciprocal link thing, but the rest of it was right on. And the other thing is, we've been talking about the update. And one thing that only one article talked about, because when you're talking about visibility, that's looking at queries, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the industries that these people listed as big losers, well, they're big losers because of COVID-19.
Yeah.
You look at what's on the very top, air travel and tourism. Well, what the fuck? It's been closed down for 2 months. Who's going to be searching? I mean, that, and only one place out of all of them. None of the places who claim to be experts in these kinds of metrics even mention COVID-19. Which is the reason for that is they are tool specific. All they talk about is their fucking tools. And some of them, for looking at this kind of stuff, those sensor stuff, all BS. I don't put much stock in their stuff at all. As far as flux, when they're measuring flux and stuff, because a lot of times they're saying it's crazy, and I'm looking and saying, I don't see it, and nobody else does.
So some of the losers in this view of the May 2020 update weren't necessarily losers because of updates. They were losers because of world reality.
Yeah.
The
They
pandemic.
they lost visibility because there just weren't that many searches. Because in
Yeah,
the
it's a
end, they're
shame.
measuring the number of people that searches that they rank for.
So
And it's a shame too because
if a Travelocity lost traffic,
Yeah,
it wasn't because Google updated.
yeah, I don't think so. I think some of it is COVID-19 related.
well, it almost has to be. And the shame of it is that it wouldn't have been that difficult to filter out things like hospitality and travel and
Or
and
just
try
put
to
a
get
note,
more
hey,
meaningful results.
right, or just put a note, some of these may be affected by COVID-19. That may
Do,
have affected their visibility.
do the same thing that baseball statistics have been doing for years since they
Exactly.
extended uh, the amount of games played per year. Put a little asterisk next to it.
Hmm.
Well, that's more about if you were taking drugs. If your muscles were drug induced, Barry Bonds.
No, there was they went from 140 games a season to 162.
Yeah, but there's bigger switches than that, and they still count all the records pretty well the same.
Right, but they always showed asterisks next to
Right,
some of
Mickey
those.
Mantle and those got asterisks because they tied Babe Ruth, and there's a difference in the things.
Right,
The
the
other,
Roger Maris hitting 60 home runs one season. Yeah,
yeah, the other
they showed
guys they should
asterisks.
put an asterisk on is anybody who won a batting title or anything, right? And we're using drugs should be, no Hall of Fame, no nothing. That's what you get, nothing.
Well, they don't necessarily have proof for a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
There's a lot of suspicion.
Uh, Believe me, the players know who are and who isn't. And now
And
they have some
and that,
kind of,
and that's why some of those guys aren't being entered into the Hall of Fame.
yeah. And some guys should have an asterisk beside all their records. Anyhow, just to move on, another thing, if you look at the sites, right, people are
Yeah.
talking about all these links and stuff. I don't think it's necessarily links. I think it's the I shortened the name. I just got to check and see what I shortened it. Oh, the KDC knowledge. I can't forget knowledge domain category. In other words, what
Yeah.
Google thinks you're the expert on. I see heavy flavored in that, especially in the winters, because a lot of the car sites that are in there from the UK, Dave and I reviewed all those sites when we were working for another UK firm. And I always wondered why they went down in visibility.
So those are the classifications from the knowledge representation vectors you're talking
I
about.
believe so. Where their sites have been getting that first category rather than second category.
Yeah.
And I think that's I believe on this update, they cranked that. Because stuff like that I found over the years, they update that and they turn the screws a little bit more.
One of the important things about that particular patent was they talk about sites having to meet a threshold of quality score.
Right.
And if they don't meet that threshold of quality score, they don't get ranked. They don't
Not even
show
in
up.
the game.
There are also features that they're looking for to be on those sites.
Right.
So, for instance, on a financial institution, calculators for currency and shit like that would be stuff that they would say is first category type extras, right?
So if you're going to rank well for a medical expertise, medical type issue that would be in that category, you have to have a lot of the same features that a National Institute of Health or a PubMed might have. And if you don't
Right.
have those types of features, you're not going to rank for that.
Yeah. I think also for doctors, they have to have links from the right directories and stuff, which was another thing I picked up in the search engine journal thing. They were another one of the only ones that talked about local in particular and what was happening there. So I went and looked at uh, a topic that I've been covering for a long time, right, Doc?
Yeah.
Office space in Toronto. And sure enough, there were all the old aggregators that come and go whenever Google does something with how they handle links. So all of a sudden, all these aggregators are in the top 10, whereas they're usually somewhere 15 or below.
But don't they usually drop back down again shortly
Yes,
thereafter?
they do. That's why
So-
when you jump on that, right?
So
However,
the sites that are linking to a CDC which is an authority in health. If certain sites are linking to them, if they're not linking to other sites,
that would be a plus in my opinion, because that's
No,
a first category.
I'm saying the sites that are linking to the high authority sites like the CDC
Right,
should be linking to other high authority sites.
right. Not
they're
to
not-
Joe's, COVID-19 page on space, on MySpace.
There's a blast from the past, eh?
Yeah, that's the only site I could think of at the time that was spammy enough. But I think they're going to use one of the things that I saw was
Yeah.
that in local directories and professional directories are seem to have gained some ground. I think because Google is more interested in them in order to, like, for instance, on lawyers.com, that'd be a first category for knowledge in that first category domain for knowledge, right, of lawyers.
Well, off the web, the most respected directory that is in existence is one called Martindale Hubble, and they publish a series of books that have.
That's a professional directory, online and offline.
Yes.
So that would be a first category and where you really want to be.
Yeah. If you're a lawyer, that's the type of resource you should be included in.
Yeah.
Because other law firms buy those directories so that they can look up lawyers.
Yeah. And the thing is with local, I don't
Yeah.
think you can look and say, oh, this is what happened 2 weeks after Google has made their thing. I think it takes them a lot longer to do that. Before they get the aggregators out of the list. And other things, if you had low quality, this is from Search Engine Journal, and I have to admit, they have a writer there who's been doing it for 20 years ago. His name is Monty. His
Oh,
last
right.
name is Monty.
Monty
That guy
Sharp.
I read, and he actually knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he's sharp.
It's
Very
restoring my faith in SEJ, at least what he's writing. Some of the other stuff, but this guy is right on. Like, you don't have to, when he says something, it's like when one of yous tell me something, I don't have to, check 15 places. I only check maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah, Roger is a long-term moderator for Webmaster World.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So he knows all the spam shit too.
He's an active
Okay.
speaker at PubCon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
He
I've
definitely
known him
knows
for
his stuff.
years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyhow, he also said that a lot of the weak sites had thin landing pages that were dependent on links internally and externally. So he said if they were using a strategy of using their strong internal pages to rank one small page to like go to all of them,
Yeah.
one thin content page to go to all of them, while the thin content page disappeared and the authority page come back in. So I think again that may be some kind of quality score thing on the pages, right?
Yeah, it's site trying to meet a quality score threshold
Right,
and not reaching it. Yeah.
right. But
Quality scores aren't on a page per page basis. They're
That's
more
right.
like a whole site type thing.
well,
Domain.
we'll agree to disagree on that. I believe there's quality scores on every page, and the aggregate of that quality score is what the site gets now.
Well, if we look at the pay-per-click quality scores,
Yeah,
that gets reduced or increased based upon things like whether or not there's a privacy policy.
yeah,
So it's a site-wide type thing.
yeah. I see. I understand that part, but there's other parts of it.
And
See,
quality scores may be a partial site type thing.
right.
It's
That's
like
what I'm saying, where it can come down to pages. Here's why I believe that, Bill. Because
if you have a site that is well optimized for certain types of terms like payday loans, Google may consider payday loans to be an especially spammy type
right,
category,
right,
and they may penalize or reduce traffic to pages that are optimized for terms like payday loans. And there may be more than one page on site that does that.
right. I don't know, because of here's what Dave and I found when we were looking at a lot of Panda sites. There was like a quality score put on pages, because 2 or 3 pages with a low quality score could kill a whole category. That's what we were finding. Or if you had a bunch of poor pages across the whole site in different categories, it seemed to hurt the quality score of the whole site.
Now, there's another potential quality score based on the quality of the writing on a site.
Which was part of Panda.
And that could be one way that they're scoring sites.
Okay, I'm just saying what Dave and I saw, and the only way that it started with 10 SEOs in a Doc may remember it, when Panda first come out. We got Eric Wu from
Meow.
Eric
From
and
Meow at
Wissam.
the time.
Yeah, we had some really good people in there, and we were talking to them about what they saw, and there was definitely, and this came from a really reliable source because they had a lot of thin content. And he said there's definitely quality scores because we were able to fix pages by just adding certain things. For instance, if you had a page that was borderline, put a video on it and it's over the top. Because of that added feature of the video on the topic, right?
They were really frontline when it came to things like Panda. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that they might have done this again with the Goopla and the Panda and that quality score group, right?
So eHow is optimized to rank for variations of keywords and keyword phrases, like how to boil water, how to
Yeah,
make water hot,
yeah.
how to cook water.
And they would all be linked, interlinked, and all that stuff. Well,
Yeah.
that always goes
It,
on.
it worked for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think every once in a while, Google just runs a thing and it eliminates all that stuff. And they might only do it every couple of years because this smelled like some of it smells like a Panda or Goopla update.
Yeah, so it's a requirement that sites meet a threshold of quality score.
Right.
And if they can't do that, they're not going to rank.
Right. And that quality score may be tied into the KDC or whatever. Yeah. Knowledge domain category. I really think that's because Google has always been such a themer, right? We used to call it theming in the early days when they come out
Well,
that they themed.
Matt Cutts used to refer to it as document classification.
Oh, okay. Which that's a little bit further than theming.
Uh-huh.
Right. And they can do that by identifying entities that are on those types of pages, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely think that's where the future is, especially in determining expertise. That post, I read it every couple of weeks now just to keep it fresh in my mind.
They get a lot of information based on what keywords certain terms are ranking for, or certain pages are ranking for.
Well, I think that's why, for instance, for a while, when I was working for a client, they had basically two products sold out of one place, right? Office Space and Virtual, right? Well, for a while, this went from up here down to here, and this went up here. So it went up a bit and maintained, and the other one went down. And, I was pulling out my hair trying to figure out what the deal was with it. And in the end, it turned out that it was probably just that query is more important, right? So the criteria to the the threshold for greatness, let's call it greatness, was much higher, and our site was so slow. Content may have been good and the product good, but the site was too effing slow.
Yeah. So that's a user experience signal, right?
Yes. Yeah. Because that site is right back where it was, and all they did was go from, remove a really shitty 13. I mean, this thing is shitty this high. Worst thing I'd offer it to Doc because
Thanks.
I just like to frustrate him. But it was bad, man, because it didn't even improve that much when I put it on a faster server. I had to remove the theme to get it to work. And then they went with another company. So I could imagine what it would have done on my server because its serving page is twice as fast as theirs.
So I have to look at those May 2020 losers and winner lists and filter out the medical site or the COVID sites.
Yeah. Oh, look at Bright.com. Okay, for events, there's no more. Their visibility was COVID-19 related. That's one of the top sites for events announcing on the internet.
Well, and on the
I'm
flip
not.
side,
I'm
then
not
you got
familiar with them. Bright.com. What types of
Bright
things do
Local.
you show? Bright
Oh,
Local.
they're like these small events around town and that sort of thing.
Yeah, meetups and stuff like that. Yeah,
Meetups and stuff like
yeah.
that.
So
It's quite well known around here.
with shelter-in-place rules, that's not gonna do
Yeah,
much business.
like those things aren't happening right now.
And then on the flip
Probably
side
not
of
going to
that,
happen for a year.
and on the flip side of that, look at what has happened to traffic to places like Zoom. Zoom US traffic has probably quadrupled in the last couple of months, and their income is probably more than that. But I mean, so some
Right.
places that were really able to gain a lot of business because of the lockdown, again, it skews it in the other direction. So yeah,
Yeah.
you really got to. They should have filtered
However-
those people out.
However, theirs would have started with a very small inventory of keywords because it's an
Well,
emerging industry,
true,
right?
true.
You don't have the searches. However, I bet you the numbers and types of queries probably increased tenfold at least.
Well, Zoom
was around for a good
Zoom
long
went
while.
Zoom went from 20 million users to 200 million in a matter of a couple months.
Oh,
Wow.
less than that, like a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it was
When he turned around and
it was
donated
all these
free
schools.
pro accounts to all the schools, that day, his traffic started skyrocketing, and yeah, they jumped to 200 million in about a week.
Yeah. Okay. So when COVID-19's done, how many will be there? Yeah.
I think they probably won't hold them all, but I think they're going to still remain a lot higher than they were pre-COVID.
Now, Zoom, it looks like from some of the stuff I've seen on TV, can have a lot more than 6 people in a room, right?
I've got a pro account that allows me 100 people in a room.
Wow.
And they have,
See, now
they have
that's
they have another level which will allow up to I forget now if it's 300 or 500. I think it might be 300.
yeah. I think the Canadian government's using Zoom.
But my pro account is only like $15 a month, and it allows me to have up to 100 people, and you can break into breakout rooms and whatnot. I mean, it's a very versatile system. The beauty of StreamYard here that we're using here, as opposed to Zoom, is that you can live stream simultaneously. You can't do that with Zoom. Well, I say you can't.
You can't live stream
I'm
anything.
not sure if you can't. It's not readily done. There may be a way to do it, but StreamYard is built in. You know, right now we're live on YouTube, for instance.
Right, and you could have it on Facebook, pretty near anywhere where you could drop the embed, right, Bill?
Right.
And that's something that StreamYard has over Zoom for the folks that want to live stream. But Zoom had some major hiccups in security earlier too that they've managed to overcome. But they got some really bad press on that, and I think that scared some people off.
Mm-hmm. That was requiring passwords for meetings because there were people who were uninvited but had access, and they would show up and sabotage.
Yeah, they'd either show up and they'd start throwing racial epithets around, or showing their wanker, or whatever.
Dicky waving.
Yeah, waving their dicks, or just cussing people out and racial slurs and stuff like that. But I don't use a password on my rooms. What I do is I make everybody that arrives goes into the waiting room, and I can see who they are. And the only way they can get into the Zoom room is if I allow them in individually.
Yeah.
But that's okay for when you know the people that are coming. If you had an event where you were allowing basically all comers, you'd want to go with the password and probably email them the password and just hope that they don't share it, But, Zoom is just as secure as any of the others now. And in reality, I think the majority of the problems that they had earlier on was just people just went in there and hit the start button and didn't even think about setting it up. and it was right for the picking for the folks that wanted to pull that kind of crap.
Yeah, they hadn't expected the surge in popularity that they experienced, and they didn't post sufficient warnings.
Yeah. The thing that
Yeah,
really surprised me about it was that when he turned around and he gifted those pro accounts to every school in the country
yeah.
and several areas outside of the country as well. I thought, boy, I hope they've got one hell of a server farm because their bandwidth is going to take a heck of a hit. And I really have not seen any significant impact on the operation at all. I mean, I was using it for months before COVID, and I've been using it almost constantly since, and I haven't seen any real impact.
I'm sure there are ways to set up contingencies, additional resources,
Yeah,
more
but
cores, more space, more bandwidth. Yeah.
when the number of accounts jump fourfold, that's a pretty big jump. I would have expected at the very least to see some lag, and I really haven't.
Yeah.
I see more video and audio lag on Hangouts than I do on Zoom.
Well, I'm using SiteGround right now, and they have some contingency based services. If you anticipate the possibility of a lot more uh, visits, you can increase uh, like $10 per core, and it's fairly flexible.
Guys, I apologize. Somebody has just shown up and I got to go.
All right,
Decide if they're going to get let in or shot. Bye.
bye now.
Later.
So knowledge domain categorization, huh?
Yeah, I see it as something that's going to be important in the future.
Because if Google can limit the number of sites that are applicable to the certain queries that fit within the same knowledge domain classifications,
Yep.
they
And when
don't
they
have,
can,
they can reduce the amount of pages that are appropriate for a query,
right,
which means the servers work less hard.
right. Also, when it's a sliding scale,
Yeah,
it's easier once you have a category to say, okay, this is the expert, this is the, middling, and these are the, unwashed masses who may have had for instance, in the healthcare, these are the people that have had it and can talk about their own experiences, which may be useful, etc. Right? Would be in that third category.
yeah.
What would you say would be in the second category?
So the patent that's from says you have experts who are doctors. You have uh, middle range sites that are done by people who are like medical students. And then you have,
Okay. So
and then
that
you have,
would be someone uh, who's knowledgeable, but is maybe not as knowledgeable. For
right.
instance, a student or a nurse who's been around it, seen things, knows things, but hasn't had all the medical training that a doctor has.
So you have some people performing queries where they want to know more that a person like them has experienced with a certain disease or illness.
Right.
You know, what's the best diet for somebody with diabetes? Can I eat oatmeal?
Right.
That you may want to hear from somebody like you as opposed to some PhD
I eat oatmeal regardless of the diabetes. Have it twice a week.
But there are plenty of questions like that for people who have certain medical conditions
Yeah.
where it's just as good or even better, maybe even to hear from people like them.
Right. But for Google, in my opinion, to categorize sites like that,
Yeah.
right? Uh, that's what their goal is right now, or seems to be part of it, is to really determine expertise. You could say that little adventure started with the first author code, right? Trying to use schema and a page, your personal page.
They were trying to identify expertise on the basis of people admitting in a profile expressly that they had certain experience, certain expertise, certain
Right.
education levels.
Like a writer for an SEO. I've written on Search Engine Land, Search Engine Journal, marketing land, all, and if you have all of them, well, you might know what you're doing. But then too, who knows?
I'm employed by a well-known agency.
Right.
I've got the email address for the agency, which is her
Right.
proof of employment.
Right.
I have a graduate degree in computer science.
Yeah.
Not necessarily something you need for SEO, but something that shows that you have some level of expertise.
Yeah. I think they're as far what may have changed some of the link stuff is
Yeah.
the fact that the domains that those links had links from, or those sites had links from, got moved up a category or down a category in the KDC, and that affected the equity that's being passed to the site, or trust or something.
Mhm.
It affect, because to me, something doesn't just have to affect equity. It can affect trust, and that can be just as problematic as equity.
Well, there's probably still some type of hubs and authority type analysis going on, where some sites are deemed to be hubs who tend to link out to sites of certain categories.
Yeah. Well, but when you look at it from that perspective,
Yeah.
one of the things I read in one of the articles was they mentioned that some communities got hurt by this update. So that may be a game where that community, their category may have changed for what they're the caliber of what they're finding on that site or in that community. Say, for instance, the Moz in SEO probably took a swan dive like it's just cliff diving in Mexico.
There are some medical communities that are more lay people than they are doctors,
Right.
and if they were considered a expert level site,
Yeah.
maybe Google decided we're not going to consider them an expert level site anymore.
I'll tell you something. When I looked at the first medic alert,
Yeah.
at that one, there were sites that it seemed to me those sites were being passed off as real facts, but they weren't doctors and stuff. It was journalists who'd been covering probably knowledgeable, but
Yeah.
didn't have the juice to back it up, kind of, you could say. So it went from if they were starting to categorize sites, because that's the other thing. That's like a ratchet, right? They don't go
Yeah.
and just do it in one fell swoop. They do it seemingly in stages.
So that's sort of like more of a mid-tier type site.
Yeah.
So these aren't the epidemiologists and people who are
No.
really
Oh, it
well
was
versed in
actually
medical.
on a specific disease that the two guys who ran the site had the disease and had been writing about it for a number of years and doing research.
So those are the guys who had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, EDS.
It might have been.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
You remember that site from it,
that
do you?
that
And
site
because
is
I went and looked, and they had some issues also with how they were presenting the links to the authors and stuff.
I think that site had some quality score issues too.
Yeah. To me, a quality score would be the findability of that information on that website could be a quality score for a category, correct? Like,
Yeah.
how easy is this to verify? I believe that first update, a lot of that was in regards to how much trust can I put in this based on what I can find out about on the page that the article is on.
Well, a lot of it goes back to that Amit Singhal 23 questions article he wrote about more guidance on high quality sites.
Yeah,
The
yeah, I know the
23
one you mean.
questions. So how much would I trust this site in terms of like purchasing something using my credit card?
Yeah,
I mean, those are good questions.
yeah. Would I trust this site?
Yeah.
But if you take that, right, and the Raiders Guide, where they talk specifically about how easy it was to verify the expertise of the writer, right, with a bio link and a byline link, a small bio at the end. To me, perfect combination is to have the byline link at the top and then a small blurb at the bottom with a couple of links into it. One to the one into the bio on the site that's complete, and one to a verification site. For instance, if I was a doctor, I'd want to link to the hospital.
While I agree with you 100%, again, we've got to remind people that the Quality Raiders Guide isn't a description of the algorithm. It's the way that Google would like sites to be seen, to be perceived.
Right. They're trying to reproduce the user's experience with the Raiders Guide. That's why it's important. Because Google's all about user experience. You see that on their site and how they judge other sites.
Yeah. And I don't know if you remember some of the Wall Street Journal and New York Times articles in the past that criticized Google tremendously that were right before Panda.
Yeah.
But places like the Times wrote articles saying, have you tried searching at Google? It's like none of the stuff is really what I wanted to find. It's impossible to find good stuff.
Here's an answer
Yeah.
from YouTube.
New York Times was one of the losers, which I thought, wonder why yet? Because you would think it has a high domain score for content, like quality. It's a freaking New York Times. But if they started putting in landing pages and stuff, well, and cross-linking after the fact, because I believe Google looks at that. Did you put the link in originally or after the fact, trying to boost one page using all your other pages?
New York Times has been doing some interesting and possibly bright type things like building an ontology that their site uses to guide them on subjects they would report upon. So they have an idea of what types of words to use when they're writing, say, sports-related articles.
In that case, it's possible that Google may have each one of those categories have their own score, right?
Right, because the New York Times covers a wide range of articles.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, they're not going to be held to one specific knowledge domain category.
Right. It'll be by their ontology probably in the end. Or you would hope.
So how much can we trust the medical coverage at the New York Times? How much can we trust the uh, science coverage at the New York Times?
That's
They
true.
they may hold it to a lot of standards instead of just
Yeah.
one.
Political for one, local news another, sports another.
Economic another, yeah.
Sports may even be broken down into local and other.
It's quite possible. I mean, they do cover a really wide range and they cover different levels. We've got, we were saying medical, maybe three levels: an expert level, a medium level, and a layperson level.
Yeah.
Well, I can see the New York Times having stories in all three.
Yeah. Another thing I just thought of, uh, on at the local level with Google, you basically tell it it has 4 or 5 categories that you can choose from, or you choose categories, right? Usually not more than 1 or 2. So you may have lawyer, personal injury lawyer, and that's about it. You get 1 or 2.
Not quite sure how well that uh, fits with the site that aggregates so much content that cuts across so many different categories.
But that's set by the owner.
Yeah.
So to some, that's what the owner is saying. This is what we're about, and then you can verify that based on your quality stuff, right?
Yeah, I had somebody from another country who had a website and they were concerned about losing traffic to the site. The site covered lots of categories, and it was more typical in that country than maybe here in the U.S. that would cover so many categories.
Right.
Uh, it was common for sites from that country to cover lots of categories like that. But they showed me stuff like they had sections that were highly commercial, more like they were being paid for by businesses.
So
Next
there's
to
heavy branding and stuff going on the pages.
on some pages of the site, and other pages were a lot less commercial, a lot more geared towards providing news and information and entertainment.
Yeah, anything that looks too too much like it's about advertising.
Yeah,
Ever since Goopla, I've found doesn't go over very well. I think Google can see and identify every ad on a page just by the semantics of it, etc.
whether or not the words being used tend to be commercial,
Yeah.
I think so too.
So if you have a lot of commercial content and that content is a broad category, but yours is really commercialized, that site eventually would only come up for transactional queries on that thing, right? Because that's what even if it had lots of links and all the other good stuff, because it would be judged as commercial first.
And this is where we have beyond page wide ranking. We have an update that might affect a whole site because parts of the site are very commercial.
Right. And those parts of the site drag down the whole quality score for the site, the aggregated quality score. Right. Like that's how me and Dave also, back to this, Dave and I kind of looked at it. Each page has a score. Then they're all aggregated to make a quality score for the site. And it may say, oh, this part of the site's really good. This is really bad. This only fits some queries, right? Commercial, like, and that sort of thing. Navigational queries. Because when they were talking about landing pages, it was also the more general the query was. So in other words, if Google didn't have a specific type category for it, but there were several. So for instance, if you were finding a like universal type result, those landing pages would lose their ranking in those types of queries where they are very general. Maybe because Google has scoped the category stuff even more. Just a possibility, not saying it's for sure, but you could see that in some of the winners for sure. Like, another one that I think is COVID related, cbc.ca. I hadn't watched CBC News in years, and now I watch it every day, and also click links to headlines that they have, because on the site they go into more detail, right? I think it's being affected by COVID.
CBC.ca,
which is basically
Canadian broadcast company.
The Canadian government's broadcasting agency. Like, you don't see much American content on that station at all.
You think that's been harmed by COVID?
No, I think it got a lot of popularity because people are going to the site to read about COVID. Because the news channel is 24, 7/24, and if it lasts a year, 365, COVID-19, with a little bit of other news.
So they want to find the most recent local COVID information.
Yeah. They have on their site statistics from each area. They also will have interviews with local businesses, that sort of thing. It's very, it would be like CNN for Canada.
Yeah.
Very regional, right? Because it's a regional broadcaster. Like at one point, it was the only channel you could get in the territories.
CNN's doing a good job of having press conferences.
Oh, that's fake news.
Some of the right people.
Oh, Trump says that's fake news.
Well, Trump doesn't have much of a brain, does he?
That's what kills me. CNN, oh, that's fake news. We almost made it. Well, it's actually after 4, so we made it a show without talking about him.
Yeah. He's a questionable topic.
Very dicey indeed. Anyhow, that's another hour we've done. You must have quite a few hours of programming now, eh?
This is, 246.
I think me and Dave have over 300 hours. That we've released. Then there's what we recorded and didn't release.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it makes sense for us to add topics to some of these.
Not sure. You mean make the shows more topic oriented?
Yeah.
Well, that would require us to actually do some work before, Bill.
It would.
I don't mind doing it once in a while, just sometimes I feel like it, sometimes I don't. It depends on how interested I am in the topic.
True.
But after, I read the one on reciprocal links and then the other one again, because I wanted to refresh my memory on the knowledge domain category. I'm just going to call it KDC now. I can't remember. It's easier to keep track of it all. But I think that's going to be something that people should be paying more attention to.
I think so. Google's shown that they're capable of doing more with machine learning.
Yes, and especially when that's verifying certain elements of pages, because they have so many to look at that they can categorize fairly precisely.
If that type of classification makes their search engine more efficient at a lower computational cost,
Definitely.
It really makes sense for them to do.
Oh, especially if you're determining domain quality, and especially particular parts of a domain, that really cuts down your search. Because guess where those parts that they deem you're not really first category? It's called the supplemental index.
If you're not meeting the
Yep,
thresholds,
I believe so.
Yeah.
And that's why you see on a pay on a now if you do a site, you see if someone's got 30% of their pages listed, you've done pretty good.
So these are the sites that we don't have to assign page ranks to. These are sites that we don't have to assign information retrieval scores to. We just list them in their supplemental index and leave it there.
Oh, yeah. They index them once in a while, but they don't even crawl them that often.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense.
Well, I've seen really high, crawl percentage, like what part of a percentage. I've seen 97, 98 when I was every month I'd update the site map and, make it and do it manually, right? So they know, okay, got the new one. And eventually you can get a site up to like 95, 98% indexed. However, when you go and actually check, if say, I've got, especially if you got a large blog, right? If a lot of those are blog pages, you're lucky if you've got 30%. Like Delsec had over, I think it was around 1,800 pages. And actually, pages that counted was probably less than 100. Because, of the 1,800 pages, probably more than that. Probably 1,750 of them were blog pages. but they ranked for some good terms with blog pages,
Yeah.
especially when I did the magic linking internal.
All right. So I gotta cook some lunch, and
We're still live, eh?
we should do that. Yeah. I gotta thank you for joining us, everyone. Have a good day.
I was wondering when you